Yes.
We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube, and
Yes.
it's great to see you again. When was
Thank
it
you.
that you came to the store last?
Last was 2019, February of 2019, I think it was.
The infamous year.
The infamous year.
The year when things were the way that they were, and
They were before
perhaps
they
never
were
shall
what
be.
they are.
What have you been up to since all of that?
Got married. I've got a 6-month-old baby now.
Oh,
Yeah, written another book since then. We've been traveling. I've been full-time in Cabo, just settling into here,
wow.
and just really embedded in expanding the work. I write for a couple of magazines now, Entrepreneur Magazine and a couple of others, and just finding more and more ways to share this perspective on how we create our own reality, how we manifest one that actually is tangible, that's got discernible results and actually works in people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. 6-month-old baby too. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
He's great.
And then I think the first time we did an event with you was with Tim Shields.
Yes, with my buddy Tim. Yeah, that was 2018.
Is he still down there in Mexico?
No, he's actually gone back up north of the border now. He abandoned us in Mexico and went back north of the border. But I think he was doing some traveling, and then now that things are what they are, I think he hunkered down over on the East Coast. But he's still doing his thing. He's a cool cat.
Good. That was something that always inspired me when we first met you guys. Just you doing this. I mean, I hadn't met anybody else like it, doing these freelance writing, squatting in Mexico. It was just such a cool story. Just tell us a little bit. Cool. I want to just introduce you a little bit before we get talking. For those of you who don't know Dan, we're doing an event with him, Daniel Mangena, right?
Yes.
That's how I pronounce it. Okay. So he's doing an event with us, June 15th. It's Manifesting in the Face of Uncertainty. It's a webinar on Tuesday, June 15th, 5 to 7 Pacific time. But he's written several books, including Stepping Beyond Intention, From Time to Time, and you said a new one as well.
Yeah, Money Game.
A Money Game, yep. And then public speaker, host of Do It With Dan podcast. And I hope to ask him a little bit about his read a book every week thing. That's very interesting. But on top of that, he is an outspoken promoter of what he calls entrepreneurial philanthropy, and the ambassador for the Mangena Foundation. Lots of things that he stays busy with. You can find him at dreamwithdan.com and on most social media platforms, Dreamer CEO. Dan, thanks for joining us. And I want to say, how did you get into all of this? I mean, most of us have like a moment, maybe an awakening moment. Maybe it's in childhood, maybe it's, in a class in college. How did you get into this manifesting and this spiritual culture?
So I was diagnosed with Asperger's really late. I was 27 years old when I was diagnosed with Asperger's.
Oh, wow.
So I've always looked at the world differently and didn't really realize there was something different about the way I looked at the world. Sort of raised in quite a conservative Christian family, but things didn't quite make sense. But there was something beautiful and lovely about being close to something that had a spiritual essence, but it just didn't click into place. As I went off and studied more, I saw that things click into place if you look at more things and click them into place with the things that you've got. And that led to me sort of studying the esoterics, the mysticism, and a lot of the backbone to what is manifesting from about the age of 16. So I started really quite early. I got deeper into the mysticism about the age of 18, 19. I was initiated into a school that actually taught more of what's going on behind the scenes, looking at ancient Egyptian mysticism, Sumerian wisdom, and how those became the foundation to what became popularized with The Secret and stuff like that. But there were essential ancient truth, ancient wisdoms that fed into that and became what we now call manifesting. It was a journey that took me through making and losing 2 multi-million-pound fortunes by the age of 23, coming back from the brink of suicide to rebuilding my life, which is what I document and speak about, the tools that created that with Stepping Beyond Intention, and coming to a place where manifesting, if you'll call it that, is a predictable process of just being conscious in what I'm creating, regardless of what's happening around me, regardless of what other people, places, and things are doing, that I become truly the author and creator of my life and can do that in a repeatable, predictable way.
Can you give us just one of those? I mean, you said coming from ancient, even ancient sources, what are some of these predictable, without spilling the beans of the, maybe just touch on one of those, just to give us an example.
Well, let's talk about universal laws, right? Everyone's talking about universal law. Universal laws, when you actually start to go behind the name twistings, when people come up with their own laws, they really all are grounded in Hermetic wisdom. Hermetic wisdom, the Greeks took it from ancient Egypt. Every single one of them had its grounding in some kind of mystery school in ancient Egypt. And what these are essentially is understanding the relationship between non-physical thought form and physical reality. Everything that we experience starts as a thought form. Everything begins in the mind before it comes out into our reality. And universal law just gives us a model for seeing where to put the pieces together. For anyone that wants to say that reality is random or that manifesting is random, I'll send them to looking at the maths that shows up in nature, the Fibonacci sequence showing up in certain flowers. It is predictable, but you can't apply geometry to a quadratic equation or reverse. And that's what often people are doing. They're taking a cookie cutter approach, applying something that they heard about on a podcast into their life, instead of understanding the mechanics of what is actually working with manifestation at a foundation level, and then having the capacity to start selecting what law to apply in what situation, what tool to apply in what situation based on you. And for me, that's what the true beauty of ancient wisdom is. It's understanding these are my foundations. Once I understand these foundations, now I can say, okay, given the situation, given my current emotional state, given what's happening in my environment, this is the law that I'm to apply and how to apply it in order to get to the desired outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And so any takeaways that we can expect from the event on the 15th? Are there certain exercises that you do and that you'll be promoting?
Definitely, we're going to be doing some clearing. I'm going to be teaching them some actual ways to approach the process of intention setting so that you've actually got a more soul-aligned relationship to it. So often people are going out trying to create things thinking it's what they want, and then realizing either that they don't want it at the end. If you want to understand that, look at all of these celebrities, for example, that are in some tragic situations, even taking their own life, having spent years in some instances chasing what they thought they wanted. You know, when we look at people going through a midlife crisis that spend 10, 15, 20, 25 years working on putting together this life that they realize in the end of the day they don't even want. So how can we actually tune into ourselves at a deep soul level and pull from source almost an intention that actually matches what we really feel called to do? That requires looking at what purpose is, looking at what it means to actually have a soul in relationship to the process of manifestation, looking at free will, where it is, what it is, and what it really does. And then being able to clear ourselves of the limitations and the distractions and the disruptions that stop those things coming to life. But ultimately, and this is the big thing, and I tried to make it blatant with the title, but it's in the face of uncertainty. You know, we've got lockdowns and pandemics and all sorts of things going on right now. A lot of people have lost their job. The families have broken up. People have lost their lives for one reason or another. These are not times when we're still subject to the illusion that we have certainty about what's going on.
Right.
So being able to look in this storm, these storms happening in our lives, and still even in the face of all of this randomness, all of this craziness, being able to be still and centered and still create a life that brings us joy, that brings us abundance, that brings us happiness, and that's lived out in purpose. That's essentially what I want people to walk away with. Understanding what those things are, how they can have it in their lives, and be more fulfilled and happy in what they're creating.
Wonderful. So for some people, you know, manifestation means, you know, I want to have that better job or more money. Is there something here that can be applied to people? I mean, I know that some people, those aren't the problems that they have, but perhaps they've been trying to break through blockages in creativity or in the arts. I know as a singer-songwriter, do you use some of these principles in awakening creativity and getting through that creative
100%.
process? Yeah.
One thing I want to remind people is that divine source, God, universe, whatever you want to call that thing, doesn't have a separate rule book for every kind of manifestation of creation. It's one rule book.
Right.
It's one rule book. Yes, I focus on teaching people how to manifest money, only because it's a tangible thing. If I give you the tools to go out and manifest $100 and it shows up, then you know that tool works. If it doesn't show up predictably, you know that tool doesn't work, or how you're working it isn't working. We can pick through and see where it didn't work, and then we can fix it. If I say, you know, something that involves another person or something that's got a qualitative essence to it, it's not so blatant as to whether it's happened or not. We can argue about it, we can talk about it. But once you understand these principles, it doesn't matter what you want to apply it to. It's exactly the same thing. In my book Money Game, yes, I teach you how to manifest money, but in the book, I actually say, this is how you apply it to having a relationship. This is how you apply it to your career. This is how you apply it to finding your purpose, because it's the same rules. We're just using a very measurable way to practice these tools so we can then apply it to other things, including creativity and purpose and relationships and all that good stuff, health.
Indeed. And then I just wanted to actually ask you, because I'm personally interested in that. Are you still keeping up on the read a book every week?
It drops off a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've got a newborn. I'm probably at about 2.5 to 3 books a month at the moment. We're getting closer back to the 4. We'll get back up to it. But in general, I am roughly, say, 3 books a month at the moment. There's some hacks to get around that. I'll use an audiobook, for example, if I'm behind. Right. If I end up going over and a book takes me 10 days, and I'll look for a shorter book that I can read that I can do in a shorter period of time. But ultimately, it's having something that's going to nourish me, fill me up, and give me something that's going to add to my life every week.
And how did you start that? Did you one book a week? How did that start?
A mentor of mine challenged. It's something that he did, and he challenged me to do it. Brad Sugars. This was 2014, I think. 2014, wow. 2015. I was already reading voraciously before then.
Right.
But then it became something that I've actually committed to, and I've done so for the last 6-7 years, something like that.
So what is your favorite book then? I mean, out of all these books, you're a great brain to pick here. You have a top 5 or something that you're reading.
That's what I was going to say. What I've actually got is something as a practice that I call 5 books that I live by. It forms a foundation of my Ideal Life Blueprint, which is a tool that I teach, and I think we spoke about it when I did my last event in February 2019. I spoke to that a little bit, but it's understanding that it's easy to read books. I read books. Oh, great. I know stuff. But what's the point if you're not applying it? Right. And sometimes you can get so caught up in the reading that you lose sight of the actual living. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine, Jad and I, 2016, we actually started doing this. We had this conversation. We're both, voracious readers. But we both were like, we don't want to be nerds that just know lots of stuff but don't actually have any street smarts or any application. Right. So we made a commitment back then that we would pick 5 books that would be the cornerstones of what we're applying. The model that I came up with, having my autistic brain, was that for me to have 5 books, I need to have them grounded in something. And that became the 5 pillars principle, which underlines my Ideal Life Blueprint. So what are the 5 areas that I want these books to speak to? And then I picked a book from the ones that I read that actually spoke most powerfully to those 5 areas. I now challenge that list of 5 areas every week. That's part and parcel of my weekly process.
So it's shifting. And I challenge whenever it's a moving target then.
It can move because as I'm reading new books, maybe something's going to be replaced as my life changes. Since having my son, parenthood and the love of family bond has changed. So that's taken precedence, and it's now one of my 5. But my 5 areas are now financial freedom, family and fatherhood, consciousness and expansion of my consciousness, meaning and purpose, and then personal pride in myself. Those are my five areas. Each one of those 5 areas has got a keyword that I use as a trigger to make sure I'm remembering to come back to it on a regular basis. And I've got a book that represents, as of now, how I want to show up in each of those 5 areas. So right now it's The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wattles. Relating Revolution, which is a great book by 2 of my friends, Meenal and Kris Kelkar. Beautiful, beautiful book. The Power of Now, The Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer, and The Way of the Superior Man by Deida. Those are my 5 books right now.
What time are we at with this? I'm going to try to write those down in the comments for people. That's brilliant. Yeah. And then recently, is there anything that you've come across in the last year or something that's really spoken to you?
So I've been reading the work of Paul Selig for about 2 years now. I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Selig.
Yeah, we hosted him. I think he was one of the last events we hosted before the pandemic.
Oh, get out of town. I love Paul. He's
February
amazing.
2020,
really, really cool guy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wrangle his team to make space for him to do an event with me. They kind of said yes, but his schedule's a bit mad right now. I really want to do a co-create an event with him. But I love the work of the guys. And the funny thing is, B, that my mate Kip was trying to tell me for about a year to read this guy's work. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, channel, yeah, cool, whatever. It's like, no, you got to do it. And then what ended up happening was in one day, 3 different people told me about the first book in the series, I Am the Word. I'm like, well, that many people saying the same thing, I've got to tune in and listen. And I felt the activation from the energy. I felt it. My wife and I then went to, he's from New York. I was in New York. My wife was New York based before I dragged her down here to Mexico. But we went to an event. The next week he had a workshop. So we went and did that. And she's been to a couple now, but I do all of the live streams and stuff like that. But I love the work of the guides. I'm generally always got one of them on my shelf, as, whether it's an audio book or as a main book. It's always sort of ticking away in the background, regardless of what I'm reading on top of it. But I've been making my way through that series of books and continue to do so.
Beautiful. Well, is there anything, I know you don't have a ton of time here, and I don't want to, like I said, spill the beans for next Tuesday, but anything, you know, if somebody's interested in spending time with you and benefiting from your extremely high-powered intention setting in your life. When you were talking about those pillars, I was like, I got to get my act together here, because I think for type A people, they just love that organizational approach. And then people like me who are not that way, it's like, well, I could really benefit from this, because I mean, we all come into this life. Maybe we're really gung-ho when we first get into meditation or spirituality, but then, you know, the inertia can set in, and I can totally see how having this systematic approach is so helpful. Are there any things that you want to tell people who might be on the fence, maybe a little bit interested, maybe think this is for them? Any words of encouragement on that?
I would say this differentiation between type A, type B, and so on and so forth, they're going to find, coming and hanging out with me, that there's a way to bypass even that differentiation. Because I'm not going to be forcing on anyone something that's outside of who they are and how they operate. A big part of what I do is throwing the cookie cutter out of the window and empowering people to look to their own process. So even when I teach people the Ideal Life Blueprint, it's a very openly structured framework that allows people to step into it in a way that serves them. So for example, with you, if structure and formulate things isn't your thing, then we can find a way to make it playful and to speak to how you do show up. But it starts with having loosely those 5 areas and having fun playing in what those 5 areas are. We've got lots of different exercises we can use to even tease out where those 5 areas are. So it's not this academic exercise where you're sitting down and someone's standing over you. It's having fun creating your life and doing so regardless of what's happening around you, regardless of who's in the seat, the White House, or in 10 Downing Street, or in the European Parliament, or what have you, regardless of what's happening with the economy, regardless of what's happening with people saying you're too tall, you're too short, you're a man, you're a woman, you're non-binary. Writing life on your terms, regardless of what's happening around you, and having fun doing it. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to spend a couple of hours digging in and giving you, in some instances, activating what's already inside of you. So we just have some fun enjoying the process of living our lives. That's my intention for others. That's what my mission's all about. Having people find their natural groove, their natural way of dancing with the universe, and using that to actually create a life that they love.
Beautiful. Have fun. Know thyself. It's next Tuesday with Dan. It's only $10, 2 hours with Dan. I mean, this is brilliant. Thank you so much, Dan, for spending this little time with us for this teaser.
Thank you.
I'm going to find those books, put them into the description. And if you are watching this live, we do have the link to the event in the description. And we'll post this up for you so you can review this. And you don't have to be joining live either. If you do register and you can't make it, we will send you the replay for that.
Oh, brilliant. I had some people that asked me that question too, so I'll make sure that they know they can get the replay.
Yeah, we'll get them in one way or another. So thank you, Dan, for spending this time with us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.